pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to a regular session of Goldendale.
Recording in progress.
For October 17th, 2022. I need to explain something before we go to roll call. Yeah, there's Mylan. I knew if I wait for that to right. But this is you have an amended agenda because we had to add in public hearing. This is on a amendment to the municipal code. And you've got the document there as well as the SEPA, which had to be done. It had not been done before. So as far as that's concerned, that's the one thing that we need is a vote to accept this amendment.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to amend the agenda for the Goldendale City Council for October 17, 2022 to include a public hearing on ordinance 1519. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We have a full council tonight. Everybody's here. It worked. Now we'll open the public hearing for ordinance.
Mayor, do you want me to give them a little briefing before we?
Yes, beforehand.
So this was the one that we discussed several months ago. The city, this was passed in May, but there were some procedure issues that we backed up and redid this document. We went back and did the SEPA document and review and waited for the response time. We did not get any comments. The only comment I got is they got a copy of it. So there were no comments on the SEPA. The other thing was we did advertise this in the local paper on October 5th, and that this would be heard this night for a public hearing. So all that notice has been given. Basically, these modifications for this are pretty simple. It was a zoning change, that's why it required a SEPA document. The modifications to the zoning have to do with primarily the fascia of the house. Our code currently says that the fascia of the house has to face towards the street. This code modified that where it could be, the fascia of the house could be changed to better suit the shape of the lot if needed. Secondly, it also modified outbuildings from square footage of a maximum 1,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet. That's primarily all it really does. Pretty minor changes.
Any questions before we? We're opening the public hearing now. Is anyone here to testify or to ask questions or to inquire about ordinance number 1519 other than Pat's explanation? If not,
anybody on Zoom for the?
yeah, anyone on Zoom? No? With that, we will close the public hearing, having heard no comments. We'll go now to the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda, or do you have questions on the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for Goldendale City Council for October 17th, 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda. The same process. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Mayor. I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda for this regular session of Goldendale City Council for October 17th. Are there any questions or any inquiries about the consent agenda before we vote? Seeing none. All in in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now, the next item, the one we're all here for, is a presentation. This is a Klickitat County Court Service and Probation Service contract, and it's going to be presented by Commissioner Jake Anderson. Commissioner, appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you all for volunteering in your community and being on city council and staff. What I'm passing around was produced by our financial services manager. And what it shows is what it costs to run court services in Klickitat County. Klickitat County, the county has been subsidizing the district court services for quite some time. That was something that was always done with the knowledge that the county is and has been and will likely always be subsidizing court services for all three cities. I apologize in advance. I usually like to get everything into your packet a week in advance. But we were, as you can see, this was printed out at 6:08, so we were working on this down to the last minute here, trying to make changes based on what we'd heard from the city of White Salmon and the city of Bingen together. The big takeaway is it costs about $1.15 million in order to run the court system just for East and West District Court. This does not include Superior Court. Costs have gone up over the last 20 years when we first started entering into these agreements of how we manage this. When we look at criminal case filings, and what we find is criminal case filings are the things that take the amount of time. When you think of your trials going in front of the judge, that's what costs the time, the effort, and primarily the money. What Ms. Bartley did was she subtracted the costs out of the subsidized amount to make it equal, because as the city, you provide your own prosecutor. So we didn't include any of our prosecutors' time, money. And what you have on the bottom of this also, for many years, East District Court had jail staff that would man the district court. That is now being provided by posse staff who are doing it free of charge. And so what you have down there is the cost with just the posse. We have another number that actually has, if the posse were no longer to do it, if the jail staff were to do that. So when you look at it, you know, of the criminal case filings, Goldendale is 37% of the criminal case filings. And of a $717,227 budget that we have for this year, your estimated contribution is $12,000. I'll give you guys a little bit of background on, I know you all are entering into right now the budget process, the favorite time of year for all of us. The county, after our first round of budget processes, we still got about a $2 million gap to fill after it's all said and done. We're looking at fees, we're looking at revenues everywhere we can find them. The fees that we just agreed to for like planning are darn near doubling. Building permits in the county are going up 28 to 30%. This is what we have to do in order to continue providing the services of the county. One of those unturned rocks has always been the court services. When we look at all of the taxes that get paid into the county from all the citizens in the county, a little over $5 million. By itself, that doesn't even cover the sheriff's budget, let alone court services, let alone the treasurer's office, the auditor's office, and everything else. A lot of that money that we use for in the new building, so on the non-electeds, a lot of that is, you know, we've got a $50-something million budget. A lot of that comes from grants, and that's how we keep funding these operations other than fees. When you look at the courthouse, that's not exactly an option. You don't see a lot of grants for the sheriff's departments. You don't see a lot of grants to provide wages for your clerk's office. It just doesn't happen. And so times were great. Before I got elected, times were great. We always had money. It's always fun when you're the new guy and you come into budget deficits. And you guys know as well as I do right now, our expenses this year, inflation's running 8 to 9%. On top of that, we're looking at, everybody's, the parking lots that are getting, filled in right now from our buildings. Those bids are coming in 20 to 40% over engineers' estimates. I know you guys are feeling the pain just like we are. And so if we were to just take the criminal case filings and take your proportionate share of that, the cost to the city would be $265,390. I know you don't have that money. I know your budget doesn't have that money. I know you can't afford that. So we have to look and become a little, we've got to do something. On top of criminal cases, and I'm going to step aside, we also have the adult probation department, which of course the district court sends a lot of people through probation because it's cheaper than jail and it's usually better for the people. When you look at the adult probation, for the last 20 years, the cities have not provided any money into adult probation, even though a significant portion of that adult probation total in the county is by Goldendale residents that go through the Goldendale court process. So and on top of adult probation, we have a problem there. We're also down staff, we had to reduce staff, and our case counts are getting so high that the two can't handle it, that are doing it. So if we were to look at the adult probation, your cost of that, at your case numbers, averaged over the last 5 years, not 3 years, for this 2022 budget, that would be $36,272. I've had preliminary discussions with Mr. Munyon about where we can go and how we can get somewhere that is equitable and fair for both the city and the county, so that we can keep providing services like we always have. I will mention that the county is not required by RCW to provide municipal court services. If we go back far enough, when Mayor Cannon probably had dark hair as dark as me, you'll remember that for a time, the city, as I understand it, decided to provide their own court services, and I think it was for a year to 2 years, and the city said, nope, we're done, and went back to the county. And I think it was the last time we had the discussion over prices of what each side will pay.
It's harder than it looks.
And it costs a lot more than you'd think.
Yes.
So I can talk to you guys a little bit about costs and the values of providing court services. When we look at a per case cost, every time a criminal case goes in front of the judge, right now, Goldendale pays in 2021, $190 per case that goes in front of that judge when you look at those dollars. East County, so the district court, the county itself, we pay $2,734 per case when you look at the numbers. And it's scary to think that that's what it costs in order to go in front of the judge. So what I have is, and I don't expect to get to any decisions tonight. This is more of a workshop, a learning lesson, a sharing exercise, saying that we're all in this boat together. How we're going to get through this. Heck, I don't know how we're going to get through this recession when we all look at the prices and you guys get into the budget. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be pretty, but we're in it together. The city of Bingen and the city of White Salmon, I met with their mayors to discuss this, much like I did with Mr. Munyon. And they came up with their idea, which was to not use criminal case filings, but all filings. And the county, we found that all filings, when you look at the cost of managing a criminal case versus the cost of somebody paying their speeding ticket, where's that value in time and how much effort is being used? When I look at the percentage of the number of people in the district versus the number of criminal case filings, it's actually pretty even to how many people are in the city versus how many people. When you look at the total number of filings, they don't filter out the filings of, all the little stuff within that are city people. It all just gets wrapped into the county in essence. Also, things that happen out on 97 don't get wrapped into that as well. So it makes it difficult to find numbers. But the cities of Bingen and White Salmon came forward with an idea because they knew they couldn't afford, if we did those numbers, like your percentage, your share of the 265,000. The city of Bingen would be 47,000. The city of White Salmon would be 73,000 is what their shares would be. Just looking at straight equitability across criminal case filings. Even though they're on the west side, even they don't have that kind of money in their budgets moving forward. So what they came forward with the idea is to use, right now what you pay is the percentage of the total number of cases. So for Goldendale, it was 9.4% of the total number of cases, but the only thing that you pay for is the judge's salary and benefits. So you pay 9.4% of the judge's salary and benefits. And that's where we get the $190 versus $2,700 per case. The cities of White Salmon and Bingen have put forth that they would be willing to pay their proportionate share of the total number of cases and of the entire budget. So rather than just the courts, rather than just the judge's salary, it was the total cost. And so if we were to run that number for Goldendale, like what the cities of White Salmon and Bingen would do, that would be $67,423. And so what I would say is if you look at 265,000 and the delta between that and 67,000, that would be the subsidy that the county would be willing to do this next upcoming year. It is a jump, absolutely, but it is nowhere near what the cost would be if you were to manage your own municipal court service, if you would like to go out and find what it would cost. I think it would be a far cry from the cost. My estimate would be much closer to the $200,000, considering we're building a new business right now in the county for mental health, and when you look at the cost of creating a new department, it scares you how expensive it is. I know it's a lot of information. I know I just threw it upon you, and you all want to look at it, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. How we can move forward in discussions on what you would like to do from here on out with the city. Just so you know, I cannot make decisions for the county because I am one of three, but the other two tasked me with the negotiations of this agreement. The goal would be is right now, because the ball got dropped many years ago, we don't even have an interlocal agreement in order to provide you the municipal court services. So we need to do that on top of setting up the costs, making it a little bit more equitable amongst all the residents. Any questions?
Council, do you have questions or comments? I hope you do.
Well, Commissioner, I was wondering, what's the chances of passing along some of these increased costs to the people who are on probation and who are in the courts? Like, I was always under the impression that if you're on probation, you have to pay for being on probation. And so can the people that are on probation pick up the cost of their own probation?
Don't I wish.
Or their
There are some costs that can be passed on, court fees. what we find is that when you give somebody a fine, like all these 138 criminal case filings of last year, what they do is they don't like to pay. They're usually in there because they don't have the money in the first place, and that's why they're doing bad things. So that, that is one of those discussions. I am not the judge, so I don't set what those fees are in those cases, but we had the East and West District judges in front of us, and that was kind of my question is like, I'm raising costs on everybody else in the county, can you guys raise your costs? And it was a whole lot of hand wringing, and I understandably so, and it's like, do you put somebody who's in a bad position and you continue to make them further in a bad position? And so that gets difficult, I think. And I think there's also RCWs, according to what I'm seeing, is that the state is trying to, it seems the state is trying to make nothing illegal anymore, and also make you not have to pay or take responsibility for your actions. So I wish I don't have control over that. That would be the district court judges.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is there any other comments or questions, Mr. Jack Anderson? I know we've discussed it, Pat and I have discussed it, that we saw that this was coming, and we've tried to rationalize the amount, what the city could actually afford and what the bill is. And we'll be taking that to the council and sitting down and come back with where we think we are. We're in better shape than we thought, but still, we're not quite that good.
Wait, your budget's in better shape than you thought, or it's not $265,000 is what we're asking for?
That's the part that that's the part we didn't find we could really do that. But we have talked quite a bit about how we can do it, what we can do, because the services provided by the county are excellent for each of these communities, and all the ones in the unincorporated communities as well, because they fall under that. And so we're very appreciative of all that the county does carry. I think it's the right approach, because we also looked at, well, what if we do it ourselves? And that quickly went south. It would be far both complicated, expensive, personnel, all the expertise costs a fortune, and you know that really well. So,
well, Mr. Anderson, Commissioner, when would you like to have our confirmation? I mean, you have to do your budget, and we finalize our budget in December, but do you want to wait that long, or do you want to have our answer by November, or when would you?
We have to pass our budget by November.
Is it November?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I
We're gonna do
thought
it on November 2nd.
Oh, okay.
We do have a budget workshop this coming Thursday at 6 p.m. This will be a topic that we'll address at that time.
Okay.
Great. The sooner the better, as always.
sure.
But we know the speed of government.
Can the county provide a budget breakdown on the total expenses for all cases, just to give us a better idea of what those individual costs are?
For each case?
No, for the total for any given year as an example, or the projected budget, what those individual costs are.
A line item spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet that kind of shows that. I don't know if it shows the cost though.
No, I don't think it shows like the budget breakdown. We have a smart sheet that Jen put together, and yeah, so maybe that's what you're talking, and you can click in there and you can see the cost. Because when there's a lot of different line items and bars numbers that go into it, and then we had one number, and then we had to, and we didn't. I'm not in the courtroom very often, so I don't know what you guys provide versus us. And we had like prosecutor. It was originally in there, and it's like, no, the city has their own prosecutor. And you're like, well, I didn't know that. I've been in front of the judge in a long time. So yeah, we can work on getting that to you. I'll ask Ms. Bartley to do that.
Thank you.
And if there's anything else,
Yeah, can you reduce crime and drop costs that way?
well, so I found that the best way to reduce the costs is to make everything legal, and then you don't need anything. Which I think is what the state's trying to do. Maybe that's how they're trying to
You're
balance
saying the
it.
federal government's absolutely right, that's not good.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, how's that working out?
I went, you know, I really got into this because I was numbers geeking on it. And when I was looking at, you know, we always talk about, you know, there's a different persona or so in Goldendale than in White Salmon, Bingen on the west side when we look at these district courts. And when we look at the numbers, you know, Goldendale had 138 criminal cases last year within the city limits, where the city of White Salmon and Bingen, who are very close and very similar in size when you match them up to Goldendale, that was only 52.
Yep.
And so you look at that and you're like, is there really 3 times as much crime in Goldendale, or is the sheriff or the police department just that much better at getting them and prosecuting them? What I've found is a lot of it comes down to the prosecutors. And so the prosecutor that you hire, how willing they are to take something to trial, because trials are the expensive things,
Sure.
versus how willing they are to settle. So there's so many different pieces that can go into this, you know, budget. Because when you look at the budget, right, between East District Court, the total cost is $717,000. And, you know, that's I consider kind of like for 2 commissioner districts, where the West District Court cost is only $430,000. And so, wow, that's a big difference when you think, you know, both of you are just running the same thing. You're just running a district court. And don't even get into how expensive the Superior Court is. That's just a whole other ball of wax.
Yes, Steve?
One element involved here in those numbers, and this is nothing new, it's been happening well before you came on board. White Salmon and Bingen have a tendency to push the indigenous people this way. They encourage them, one way or the other, to come to Goldendale. Cost of living's better. It's cheaper.
There's
And it gets it out of their hair.
so many jokes I could make about that because I drive from White Salmon to here every day. I have yet to see the police chief give a bus pass to anyone to send them up here. But I can tell you from going to their city council meetings, it's not just the indigenous people, it's all the people who grew up there, all my friends that I was raised with that are all moving out this way because they can't afford to buy a house on the west side
Exactly.
of the county. And, you know, the trailer courts are gone. They've all been, you know, now they're $500,000 houses. Well, they were when they were built. Now they're $750,000 houses. And yeah, you know, I hear both sides of the county and the issues that are so much the same. Affordable housing in Goldendale is one number. Affordable housing in White Salmon is a completely different number.
Exactly.
And I can tell you from growing up there how difficult it is to afford to live in the gorge. And I regret not buying every house that I could in 2015 when I first started working in Goldendale. Yeah, I don't have an answer on them pushing them, but I don't think anyone, or I don't think there's ever a politician who would ever admit, unless you're at the southern border, to sending people from one place to another.
Just to clarify that a little bit, I wasn't referring to the political parties, council members, mayors, or anything. Your agencies, state agencies especially, federal agencies, assistant agencies, those are the ones that are doing, have been for a long time. I've been running rentals for 30 years here and working with those agencies. And I've had them tell me straight out, they do it.
Right, because those agencies, you can actually afford to get an apartment here and pay the percentage and the maximum caps where you can't afford to in White Salmon.
The point I was trying to make was it's relative to some of those numbers you're talking about, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other questions?
If not, we'll get together with the budget, sort it out, and then let you know as quick as we can.
And any questions you have, feel free to contact me, Jacob A. Clickitat County. If any of you, I know I am your commissioner because once we're elected, we represent everyone, and I don't spend as much time over here in your city councils as I do on the west side. But if you'd ever like updates from the county or any updates from me, I'd be happy to come and let you guys know where we're at and where we're going because, well, we're all in it together.
Exactly it.
All right, thank you all.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to let you guys get on with the rest of your agenda while I start the long drive home.
We'll go now to department reports, and we'll begin with the Goldendale Public Works Department.
Yeah, well, I kind of cover both topics. So right now, the Public Works Department has a broken water line. I don't know if I think they're probably done by now up on High Street, right in front of those apartments. There was a 2-inch service line. They had that removed, probably right around 20 feet of it, and replace it off the main line. When I left there, they had just got it tied back in, so I'm sure they've got it filled in by now and probably gone. But the other thing that they're working on right now that's taking up a lot of their time is under the airport fuel system project, it was agreed to in terms when that was bid that the city would do the digging for the electrical work. They were doing pretty good, even though it was rocky, but making about 100 feet a day, and they made 13 feet today.
Oh, my.
Basically, they've hit solid rock, and they're having to chip it all out, and they're not making good progress right now. Hopefully that gets loosened up. The problem is if we rent a bigger machine that'll rip through it. We're so close to the taxiway, we're concerned that if we start picking up big boulders, that will rip the taxiway out.
Good.
So we're gonna have to just keep busting through it to get that utility in where we need it outside the free zone area. So it can't go any farther south than it is. We're right at the max of where we have to be. And then Byers Street project, I'm sure most of you are aware by now, hopefully, that the sidewalk is in. They're starting to tie in the driveways back to the condition that they were in, as close as they can before. They still have some minor concrete work up there, not a whole lot, particularly one driveway. And then we have a little retaining wall we need to build on one driveway. And the rest of it's just mainly gravel and some asphalt.
Sure.
And then we're Highland Subdivision project. Really haven't got much of an update there. We're waiting for to get us some more information. Last time we were up there, some of the meters were, some electric bulbs were missing lids, so we wanted the lids in place. We haven't got a response back on that, and some of the pipe that they installed for the meter setups was, we asked them to leave it a little long, but they left it way too long. I mean, one of it's like 10 feet long and laying outside the box, so they're gonna have to come back and fix those type of issues. And then we, hopefully soon we'll be starting on this sidewalk that we'll be replacing downtown next to, I think it's Allstate Insurance, Mike Cole's building, is that Allstate Insurance?
State Farm.
State Farm Insurance. He had a contractor put it in, they ripped it out without even talking to the city, and then they had a contractor put it back in, and that sidewalk does not meet any construction standards whatsoever. It's wavy, it has to be removed for ADA purposes and be put back into ADA standards. We do got quotes on that. The quotes are really reasonable, what we estimated. Mike Cole has given us a check. I guess we should probably run that and see if it's any good. Not saying it's bad, but I just want to make sure. So, to perform that work for them. So hopefully that'll be moving along and getting done before it gets much colder. And then we're working with the state auditor's office, Sandy and I. Hopefully we should be done by the end of this week. And it'll probably be a while before we hear the final report back, but I think the auditor, this is his last week in office. So far, I don't think there's any major issues. And
Not that
then,
he's told us.
well, I've asked him a couple times, he said no major issues, so. And then we're still working, Jeff and I are still working on 2 short plat reviews, and I'm working on preparing final staff reports. But there again, we're still waiting from additional information from the engineer.
Very full plate.
I have a question. The Highland Development, that's out on 18th Street, correct?
Yeah.
Did we find out why there's 2 different curbs styles on each side?
That was what was approved.
Okay.
Why it was approved that way, I have no idea, so.
Are there any accesses to residences on this north side of that street?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, it's not
Yeah,
just
that wasn't how I remember that was all supposed to be, but
Yeah, I thought
I had
it was just
issues
to a
with that.
stormwater detention area.
there was supposed to be room for more parking, and apparently not now.
more parking.
That was a key
Yeah,
parking.
well, that was supposed to, well, we had suggested there'd be more parking on that side of the street, and they said something about stormwater or something, and now there's different curbs on that side with residents. Looks like they're gonna start building houses on the other piece of property there.
That's where one of the short plats are.
Yeah. But that
And
was not,
then,
yeah.
from what I read in the staff report, which you're more than welcome to come down and look at, Andrew, is the staff report said that street is completely supposed to be marked no parking, and that's one of the requirements, hold up, that we required them that they need to do.
Yeah,
It's
no,
posted no
yeah,
parking.
that was the issue that I brought up with parking issues and how narrow that road was, and how there's limited parking all the way through that neighborhood, and that's why I was against it, and I still am.
A lot of it came from the direction of council. So hopefully that's still done and not thrown out the window.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I wish the road was a little wider personally, but, you know, you don't want to get too wide either with streets. You need it just enough, because the old days of really wide streets is really expensive to maintain. You know, and hopefully this next year we'll be working on some street standards for, you know, and classifications of our streets in town, and identifying what streets will be classified as an arterial, collector streets, and then residential streets and major arterials, which all come with, you know, like this out here is a major arterial. It's got a turning lane, things like that. A minor arterial probably is not going to have a turning lane, but it's still going to be a wider street because of the, you know, the amount of traffic that's going down and truck traffic. But those are things we can work out as we go through establishing the city's own road standards and construction practices moving forward with what's going to be allowed and not allowed. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. We'll go down to the Goldendale Fire Department and go home.
Thanks, Mayor. So the first graders came and visited us at the fire department last Friday. That's always an interesting adventure. I'm assured that they had a lot of fun, so had several firefighters helping out that, and it was good. So we sent a brush truck to the Nakia Creek fire. It is in Clark County, Camas-Washougal area. They went with a strike team from Kittitas County and Yakima County. They're on structure protection right now, but we sent out a truck through the state mob process, 2 personnel, so that's a great adventure for them to be on. Hopefully the weather is going to change here soon, and they can catch that fire there in Camas. With that being said, it is still really dry out there, and we're gonna have significant rainfall to change this. But the burn ban right now is still in effect until, was it 31st at midnight? Is that how you say it? So basically we can burn the 1st. That is Zone 2, which we follow Zone 2 and Rural 7 Fire and Rescue. It makes it a lot easier for the city of Goldendale to do that instead of trying to set our own burn ban.
Exactly.
So as of right now, that is the date.
Watch it closely, thank you. Chief Hunziker, Goldendale Police Department.
I don't have very much at all tonight. Just a couple things. Myself and Pat have been working on. We're reaching out to some agencies for getting further advertising for positions to see if we can draw in that lateral. Our patrol car, I just got notification today, is going to probably be delayed about a month because Day Wireless didn't order some parts when they should have, and some fell through the cracks. So they're expecting the parts no later than the 15th of next month. So we got to wait a little bit longer for that. Things are going okay at the police department. We still got a light breather going, with calls for service, so we're not being as hammered as hard as we were, but we're still busy. So according to the stats here from the county, yeah, we are really busy. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks very much. We'll go now to council business, and Pat Munyon will give the introduction for this Broadway Parking.
Yeah, there was some concerns brought forth to the administration from a couple of council members about why East Broadway has no parking and West Broadway allows parking. From my understanding, looking at it and some history on it, that the drive lanes on West Broadway for the miles per hour are too narrow, and there's been accidents, and there's also several line of sight issues with not only big oak trees, but big vehicles being parked too close to the intersection, making it difficult for vehicles to turn out there safely. So the point of this conversation tonight is to have a discussion with city council so the staff has a direction on how we want to proceed. Is with no parking, or another solution would be to allow parking on one side and not the other. And definitely, do some proper setbacks from how close a car can park to an intersection to allow a reasonable line of sight. So I'll leave it to you guys to give us some direction on what you would like to see, or if you'd like us to pursue this at all as a majority.
I would say that I have a concern. I agree there's a concern for safety on West Broadway with all the parking there. There is a line of sight issue. There's a line of sight issue coming out of Mill Street going towards the fairgrounds, especially during the fair. It increases traffic. But even coming out of a Brand or any other street, because there's so much parking there. Also traveling out of town to the west side, if you're going to the transfer station hauling a trailer, you have to kind of ride the middle line, which causes a problem when there's traffic coming your way. We also have a lot of semis traveling through there. A lot of the timber companies use that road, and it's not wide enough for two vehicles and a semi, I would say. So
I think it's some, sorry.
Go ahead.
In my opinion, I think maybe we should try one side parking, and then if that doesn't help, only parking on that side.
Well, I think if you go to one side parking, you would definitely meet the lane width for the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit through there.
Do you offset the center lane?
You would offset the center lane, yeah. It's one solution. The other solution is, well, there's three solutions. Leave it the way it is, work on line of sights on the corners, go to parking on one side and not the other, or go to no parking. But you still got line of sight issues. And some of those are not gonna be pleasant for council to fix, because one's probably, I would say, 150 to 200-year oak tree. That is a huge line of sight issue. And what a lot of people don't realize is in the Ninth Circuit Court about 11 years ago, the Ninth Circuit Court ruled that cities can be liable in a car accident for line of sight issues for not maintaining them. So we can be named as a party in any lawsuit if there's an accident there and it's proven that the accident was caused by a line of sight issue. So it's something that we need to look at and take very seriously in the community in the future when we're looking at things, and limit those line of sight issues whenever possible.
I have a question too, because I've been told several times that our parking enforcement for any no parking zones or yellow stripes around town is not enforceable, and citations cannot be issued. So is that something that is true? Is that a training issue, or is that something that needs to go to the ordinance committee?
I don't know, do you know anything about that?
Well, what you just said, if you have a painted yellow line indicating, which is, the no parking area, but it's so faded out, right, that's a problem, right? So any area that you want to maintain as a no parking area with the yellow curb and stuff, they got to keep those bright and stuff, so it doesn't bring into question. Some of them are pretty bad.
I've been told that the city ordinance is not enforceable and or citations cannot be issued based on that.
But you also have the state statute for no parking
So
zones.
then that would be a training issue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, usually the rule of thumb is 15 foot off the radius is yellow curve on a corner, and that depends on the configuration of the road as well. Sometimes they get extended longer than that because of line of sight issues, and there's red curves, there's green curves, they all mean different things. A green curve's a loading zone, a red curve's fire lane. That's something we need to work with NOAA as well.
I think our ordinance in the state one says yellow is fire lane as well.
Yeah,
Which is interesting, but I agree. Red is typically
a fire lane, and it's a lot better indication that it is a fire lane, particularly across the street from the fire station, where Noah and I have talked several times about the red curve needs to be extended out another, 50, 60 feet, we figured? So that he can actually, you guys, when you're going to a fire, can swing that truck better. So no one's parked in that way.
So we don't
Yeah.
look at the other bumper? Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
That 15 foot on the radius that you're talking about, which has pretty much been the standard, that, or you might look into code when that was established, but it's been a long, long time ago. And now,
Well, I'm referring to state law, I'm not referring to, state law is 15 foot off the radius. That's what's adopted by Washington State Department of Transportation.
and then we adopted the state law.
I would have to look that up, to be honest, so I was just referring to what state law says.
Well, it would be interesting to compare. what
Well,
state
we-
law is
we-
and what we've adopted,
Yeah.
when we adopted.
Ours can be stricter than, it can't be less than, so if it was less than 15 foot, we would not enforce that, or we would not perform that work anyway.
Right,
We would perform it to state law.
right.
If it's greater than, then we would go to that extra extent. So let's say our code says 20 foot, that's what we would do.
Okay, the point I was gonna make was that particular parameter was established before half the people were driving 4-door, 20-foot pickups.
Exactly.
And that is, there's your line of sight with that 15 foot. I mean, I've seen them a lot pulling up to an intersection. If there was a little car sitting there, you would be able to see, all right. But so many times, it's not a little car. It's a 4x4, 3/4 ton pickup.
Sometimes with a camper.
Well,
That with a camper on it, probably.
you're seeing more and more angled parking that have a straight bar back behind them. You understand what I'm talking about? You got your angled parking that comes out, and then they'll have a straight bar drawing, attaching all those. That's so for when longer vehicles are pulled in up against the curb, if their back end is sticking out over that line, they're illegally parked. They cannot stick outside the parking box.
We've got a 20-foot maximum length limit. I know downtown.
Yeah.
Downtown, we've got 20 foot, and a lot, not a lot, but
But when a big
occasionally
long
they
truck is
exceed
parked
that.
in there, they're 22 feet long, when, particularly when they have a hitch on them.
And they try to the tailgate down.
Yeah,
Right.
which means they're illegally parked if they're outside the
And
bar.
again, it's the rise of more people driving the larger vehicles. And so, I mean, that's good, enough reason to look into that and address that. I mean, Main Street's probably as bad a place as any. You got them both on each side. And it's a nice wide street.
Yeah.
But as everybody knows, there's been time going down Main Street and you better be on your toes.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
you're gonna you're gonna hit somebody.
Just to warn you though, because Broadway is state highway, if we eliminate the parking, you'll never get it back.
Okay, along those lines, we've had a lot of discussion about this issue on Broadway, West Broadway. And myself, I've driven the alleys. And there is adequate, we've come to that conclusion too, there's adequate parking for everybody that lives along there. There is. And in fact, a lot of those people that are parking on the street is just convenience. They got right back, they can park there, but no, it's closer to the front door here, so they park on the street. There is adequate parking. I would suggest no parking either side. I mean, it's worked on East Broadway.
Yeah, I think it looks great on East Broadway, Columbus, and Simcoe, all our main thoroughfares, and it makes sense to kind of match that up, both for aesthetics as well as safety.
Absolutely. In fact, there is less available parking, off-street parking on East Broadway, if you want to look at it. For one thing, there is no alley on the north side, for the most part.
They all have driveways.
They've got driveways. There is an alley on the south side, but there's alleys on West Broadway.
There was a concern brought up on the north side today of the museum that, we may need to work with them on putting more parking on the side street if we do that.
We've discussed that also. That first
Grant.
is Grant Street, where whoever owned it built a nice new fence around it.
That's
Around
just
the house.
Justin's fence.
Is Justin, I still own that house?
I guess.
I did it one time. Anyway, there has already been discussion in regards to this, in regards to the parking for the Presley place, of taking the curb down there, right along there, and putting diagonal parking in there. There's enough room to accommodate half a dozen cars at least.
That should be enough.
And that on the south side of the street, you've got a real wide apron there, very wide apron, where people park off the street, whether it's in the Legion or for the Presby Museum. I don't think that's going to be an obstruction for eliminating parking
We
at all.
also have increased county parking at the new lot that's finished, and within a block and a half, there'll soon be another lot there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, there's three businesses. You have the Legion, you have Justin's Brewery there. I don't know if he's gonna open it up again, but then I think something has to work, and then you also have the funeral home. Those are the ones that, but on Legion's, they got enough place to park on the south side, and with Justin's, they would have to do a side street or whatever, and I think the funeral home has parking in the back, or they could work it out or whatever. And then another comment I'd like to, like Pat mentioned, you know, these old trees, you know, like 105 years old, but that is a danger. There is the line of sight is poor there, but there are 5 trees. And I really kind of like to look at it, if the city decided to take action on that, do we need to take out 5 trees, or can we limit it to 2 or 3? I would like to look at that.
Even just the one
I
closest to the
I always
corner.
think the one closest.
What's that right? Okay. Well, really, that'd be great.
Yeah, just that one would make a big difference.
Yeah, right.
I would say two things is, one, if we're gonna address, since we're addressing parking, let's address what is needed for ordinance for the entire city, not just Broadway, right? And look at what needs to be painted. I know North Columbus from Broadway is not painted. That's a no parking area. I would also hesitate to add parking spots for the Presby Museum.
But isn't it posted?
I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's posted.
Is it posted? Okay. There's cars there all the time. But the other thing is, I would hesitate to add parking on the north side of Grant, because that is residential. There's a couple homes there, where on the south side, it's businesses, there's already parking on Grant Street. So making that decision to add a whole bunch of foot traffic and parking in front of people's homes, without their knowledge and comments, I would just don't want to do that.
Yeah, I would definitely, oh, sorry, Lauren, go ahead.
Are you looking for a decision this evening, or just a
I'm
decision
just
about what to
looking
do
at-
with the parking, or a decision on whether to
I'm not looking
investigate?
for a decision, I'm just looking at direction of what you guys want to see potentially come back in front of you to work on.
I would move that we look at options to remove parking on both sides of East Broadway, West Broadway, sorry, and mitigation options for that if needed.
But I would definitely recommend city council before we, definitely, even though it's an ordinance, it's gotta go through a public hearing process. But I would recommend running it through 2 public hearing processes.
Exactly.
One more thing I'd like to add about the West Broadway issue is there is a nice wide parking strip on both sides of that street. If you want to measure from sidewalk to sidewalk, it's about 1.5 miles. I mean, there's a lot of off-street capacity if we wanted to address it. Some years ago, the city got all fired up about not allowing people to park on there. No. And that lasted for about a week, and people just kept parking on it. But it gets them off the street. And I think what the city eventually did was say, okay, you can do that as long as you don't leave a mud hole. Bring in some gravel or whatever, you know.
Isn't there a lot of other streets like that throughout town that
Yes.
have that wide,
And
where
people,
park? It's filled with gravel, and that's off-street parking, and
absolutely,
it's allowed.
absolutely. And there's about 1% of the houses in town that,
Some
you
direction.
know, have that kind of frontage. Keep it green. You know, they take care of it. I say 1%. The rest of them don't. It just dies, it's dead, it's ugly, whatever. But there is your parking, off-street parking. And in a lot of, not just Broadway, but in a number of areas around town. So, I mean,
We need to back up a little bit, because Lauren has made a motion. If it doesn't get a second,
I did.
okay, then we need to vote. I hesitate for the wisdom of making a decision like that before we've even done the investigations, but
Right, so the motion was for staff to do the work to start to investigate further.
yeah. Oh, I didn't hear that part. I heard just no parking. on
Or,
either side.
no parking?
Right.
Okay.
Both sides of Broadway.
That's the direction we're seeking. That's the direction we're seeking. That's perfect.
We need to let the public have a chance to come in and
Yeah, exactly. We still gotta have that.
Take at least 2 public hearings. Can we have a motion on the floor? Does anybody have questions or comments before we vote? If not, all in favor of Lauren's motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, the only other item we have now is report of officers. I will begin with Andrew.
Nope, not anything.
Ellie? Lauren?
Oh, just to note that Byers Street looks great, we just have the sidewalk in, it's like an excellent project, so a lot of people are already taking advantage of that.
Good. I hope the mood's changed there. Dave?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You know, is what I was thinking about is our public comment changes that we've been talking about. And, you know, I think that giving the people the opportunity to talk about agenda items before the meeting is a good idea. You know, it'll give us a chance to hear from people before we make a decision on things. Excuse me. However, I think we should still continue to provide an opportunity for open public comment at the end of our meeting, as long as it is orderly and the 3-minute time limit is observed and there aren't threats or obscenities. We should hear it. That's what I think. It only takes a few minutes of our time. You know, sometimes people just want to be heard, even if it's something that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with us. Maybe we can direct them to who it does have to do with. You know, even if we disagree entirely with what they're saying, it doesn't hurt us to listen. It's just a few minutes, and it's like I come from customer service, and this is kind of customer service also. You know, the people in town are our customers. They're buying our service, they're buying our water, they're paying the taxes. If someone wants to come in at the end of a meeting and spend 3 minutes to bring up something totally off the agenda, I think we should hear it. It's just a few minutes. Hardly anybody ever shows up anyway. That's what I would like to see.
I agree with Dave.
Yeah, I support that.
Would you like us to draft something up and bring it back next meeting?
Because right now, this is what our ordinance states. It's
Yeah.
what's in there currently, but,
I mean, I understand the point of the ordinance and,
yeah.
you know, what its intent is, but I don't think we need to be so hardcore about that we can't listen to somebody that wants to bring up something. And maybe it's something that we need to hear. Maybe they just want to have their views on the record, you know.
There's been numerous times where
Yeah.
people have brought things to our attention that we didn't think of or wasn't on the agenda. I think it,
Yeah, just
Yeah.
one example, the handicap, you know, downtown. You know, that was brought up. The lady brought that up, and I thought that was great. We wouldn't have brought it up if she didn't say
Have
anything
that
about it.
possibility,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, some things have been brought up before during office hours. We don't have an office here. And I agree, we need to be hearing what those people that voted for us or not voted for us want before we make decisions.
So, yeah, that's all I had. If we need to make a motion to redo that and let people have their say at the end of the meeting, you know. I really like the idea of letting the public comment
Yeah.
before the agenda on agenda items only. I think that's great. But
Then the
if
other-
if someone wants to show up and
Yeah.
say their piece about whatever it is, I think we should let them.
We'll make the changes, draft, and then bring it back for you so you guys can see what the changes are for the ordinance layout.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I think you're doing a good approach. One set of comments early on, subject only, and then other things that people want to raise. Because very often those things they raise end up on the agenda at the next meeting or a meeting after that. So it's a productive thing
Yeah.
to have the public speak out.
And we should encourage people to come and
Yeah.
participate in the process and feel welcome to be here and feel like we'll listen to, you know.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, that's far better, more productive to do that. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve?
Nothing. Other than this ordinance 1519, is this just a heads up for later, at a later date, to adopt this ordinance change?
Yeah, we'll bring it back next meeting
Yeah.
for adoption.
Okay, because I do have some discussion about this.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Well, I'm feeling lucky, Phil.
Oh, okay. All right, so totally agree with Dave's comments. I don't want to limit the people's freedom of speech, even if it is procedural. It is our job to listen to people. The other thing that I wanted to mention, one thing I was looking at is I'm looking at several positions that are available through the Association of Washington Cities. I don't know if anybody else knows that there are several committees and subcommittees through the Association of Washington Cities that are open and needing council members, council representation there. Several of them are on state, well, they're all state committees. And so I know, earlier discussion was, well, what about the state laws and this and that and how it's changing? A lot of that comes from those committees. One necessarily on that, I can't remember the exact name, but it has to do with the criminal justice system and the prison system. They need somebody's representation. There's a committee for representation for small cities, cities in the east side. So if we want to be heard and our voices heard, this is a great opportunity for everybody to pick another committee where you can make changes at the state level and have our small city heard at those larger committees that do make a lot of the changes and procedural changes in the state. So I'm looking at applying for one of them, and I don't know if there's a process with the city to do that or anything like that. And then the other thing is, what is the process for attending set meetings if they're not in Zoom? I'll need to get some more information. To represent the city on the Association of Washington Cities committees that are available.
The board to represent Goldendale, that would need a vote of, I believe, the city council for you.
To apply for those committees?
Not to apply for those committees, but to represent the city, you would need their blessing.
Well, you're representing Goldendale as a city council member in those committees.
Yeah.
But you're representing really all the small cities of Washington State, though.
Right.
And AWC, I'm sure, like other state agencies, they will reimburse for travel, and maybe you only get, I don't know, 50, like we get $50 a meeting.
Right.
You don't need,
So you don't need council approval?
You don't need council approval to represent all cities, but if you're gonna represent
A specific topic
a
for
specific
Goldendale.
topic, you need their authorization, their majority authorization.
Right, okay. Perfect. So yeah, anyways, that is a big thing I think everybody should look at. And I don't know if everybody gets the AWC emails, but they're on there.
I can send them out to the council, because I get them very often if it's something.
I get it.
You do get it?
Yeah.
Who doesn't get AWC bulletins? Okay. They're good reading every time.
They are, yes.
I'll send them to everyone. I won't.
Well,
bother you.
include me just in case.
Okay, we'll just do the
At
whole
least the
council.
first one.
Yes, the first one. If you say, oh, I've already got that, then I'll take you off of it. Okay.
Yeah, and then, I just encourage everybody else to come in and join the committees, the subcommittees, and the budget hearing process. We're discussing a lot of things that may impact the citizens. And I think everybody should be intrigued by some of the proposed changes. That's all.
Thanks, Phil. Good comment.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I just, a real quick report. Last spring, we applied to federal earmarks, $2 million for the solid waste treatment plant. And we got through the first phase, but then the second phase, I got a call from Senator Murray's office, State Director, and we were not approved. But however, he says, try again next year. There'll be a better chance next year. That's what he felt. I've known him for a long time. So anyway, just FYI that, I still think we should try to apply for that $2 million grant, because that could offset the $4 million loan we're going to get from Department of Ecology. So anyway, just let them know. I think we'll still be working on it.
Yep.
So
You don't ever give up on those things.
exactly.
Thank you for your work on that.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have there.
On the mayor's side, only that both Mila and I will be attending a small airport meeting in Leavenworth, not tomorrow, but the day, 2 days after. And there's two things to it. One, we'll be trying to identify the different processes to get money for the airport. And the other thing is with the fuel system almost in, if they can get past that big rock, then all the focus is going to go on expanding the runway so it's safer and longer, and the hangars as well. Those two things will go side by side, but they are very pricey items, particularly the runway. And we're constantly looking for funding for that. But you'll see a shift to that once we get that fuel system. And then there's another thing. I've talked to people that are pilots and have planes, and the fuel system we put in works for about 96% of the planes in the country. All the prop driven planes can use that. So we've got that. Same with the length of the runway that we have now. So this isn't we got to do it or we'll never be able to do anything. We just need to take care of that. Whenever we get to the 5,000 feet and it's available for local jets or jets coming in, small jets, then in that case we'll be looking to get a truck that'll carry diesel fuel, because for the guys in jets, the truck goes to them, they don't go to the pump. So it's a little bit different. But we could do that. That's a far less expensive proposition than the huge tank that we're putting in right now for the avgas. So that's just kind of a good update of where we're at. Hopefully there'll be a lot more when we get back. Oh, I want to congratulate everybody here. Sandy made a speech this time. Both of us made one the last time about talking one at a time. This was almost 100% tonight. It was a totally different meeting, and it really helps for us all if we're not talking over each other. With that, I'll interrupt somebody just for fun.
We'll need regular reminders.
The next item on the agenda is public comment. Mr. Hopter.
Couple of things. First of all, Dave,
Have your name and address.
Larry Hochter, Goldendale, Washington. Great idea, and you said it better than I was going to say it. I've thought about this ever since I heard you guys talk about it last week, about having discussion only on the agenda items at the beginning, and then any other discussion at the end. Great idea, the citizens are your customers. Second of all, I got the impression some of you, were questioning why East Broadway is no parking and West Broadway has parking. For those of us who were here before in the early 70s when the highway went around town, East Broadway was 97. Everything that was out on the highway came up Columbus, turned at the Bear, used to be the corner Chevron, now it's a Superfund site, I guess, and went out Broadway to get out to go to Yakima. And that would have been the basis. And back then, you didn't have all the people living out north and west of town that went out West Broadway. I also would like to ask, when you consider your visibility safety aspect, the corner at Collins Drive in Columbus where that tree sticks out there,
Exactly.
hiding the traffic and the cars behind it. The Dirty Cowgirl intersection pretty much took care of itself, but when they had the fence to hold the drunks in, and then they lit it up at night with lights, I could not, or I had a very hard time differentiating those lights from the car lights that were hiding behind the fence.
Sure.
So please keep that in mind if and when you think about putting ordinance in for visibility and justifying that. So, other than that, thank you.
Good. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Anybody online for public comment? If none, hearing none, we will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
No discussion, right? All in favor?
Aye. Wait a minute.
I'm just